Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Nerach.
William Shoh to show you Claare na Gael. This is Robert getting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Have I heard tell of old Bobby Bob?
And I'm here to bring you Claare na Gael, a programme with a thread in the English language as leis nice yes, and with a thread in the Manx Gaelic as well. Chimney Sweep, the mother tongue of Ellen Vanning, the Isle of Man. As Bannacht and Dirich, this booklet that we looked at last week, Fairies, Ground, Homely Tales and Poems by Dorothy Manley, is undated, but I suppose there's a terminus post and antiquem. It's printed by a company which I think was set up in 1980, and it was obviously printed before the 16th of April 1995, because the telephone number is 0624 rather than 01624. That was the date when that extra figure came in. By Gael and early John Stewart, Tashin Clashen, the Denke leis Count Dracula skepel vaina queg Cumregen ons tie account ons Piccadilly. Tad liag chriach treted gol back as tie Benrit John Stewart, read to Mina Harker furcht an oru. We begin with a walking song in Gaelic na Halaba, sung by FIONA MACKENZIE with the inter-Celtic band Anam, who we'll be hearing later on as well.
Yeah.
the walking song Inyo, and the band Anam with Scottish singer FIONA MACKENZIE, the Irishman who became her husband, BRYN O'Hara, Irish accordion player Trassa Harkin, and Cornish string player Neil Davey. And the band visited Ymryson a good few years ago now. We looked at the 5 poems in Dorothy Manley's booklet, now for the homely tales, of which there are 5 altogether. They're not autobiographical, they're imaginative stories. And this first one we hear why the collection is entitled Fairies' Ground. Nothing to do with fairy stories in the conventional sense, as you shall find out. And the first homely tale is called The Chimney Sweep. Well, you just go jogging along, don't you, year in and year out, hardly noticing the great changes taking place around you, until something pulls you up, short. So it wasn't until they sent old Fairy off to the Westering Home that I really started looking back at life in this parish over a suddenly long stretch of 60 years or so. Of course, we split into factions right away. One part said it was a crime to send the old man out there. Almost as bad, they said, as tearing down that crumbling old Wesleyan chapel by the bridge to build a tower of flats. And you can guess how much feeling was worked up over that. For myself, I'd rather have slapped a preservation order on old Fairy. Firneacht en Jaldenijn, Dinschen de Benasje Parker, de Guljurid ver hagert. As grij de Denkie de wei, as Henkie de wei go bijna snjaagde, ne keerten treve Jean de rauw gauw bagert er en dunje sheshek, deestie de dunnel as les kuna. Tre Henkschen gesenaren on ve haker rijer a gaunt go dangerach, rennie kroger is rije dunje sheshe. As rennig kummelie getjan as de waddige kroogek kode vai adi by odders chit. A geroerie weg der van kunte gint te sledden. As we cushion wij courage lesh kaartges en treibe aan. Eschgen ligge lauwe dunje sheshe, chasi na maastein as lorry. Oh, de rauw eble dem cor fau jen reert. Jen ven village by village und sledden eilage en egged as a vriek. Leis a chron jurg a besh, as ischgoil taste jay as shingen fagene les snaggerach fieglen. As kunjenein cree vai as cree nacht henke de way on. A kindgelis graiach ek casolerish a dewy grau ein. Now we've heard the work of various of the Cornish songwriters, and this is from their presentation about the fishing silver harvest, and it's a man we've heard before, Tony TRUSCOTT, and he's singing his song Old Timer.
I see the sun setting as seagulls come to shore. The seas roll from the Atlantic, out here the combers roar. And as I sit I wonder, my man first went to sea. And as the sun goes westward, the answer lies in me. Each summer night I sit here and watch the ships below, leaving Falmouth Harbour, mooring in the roads. For 20 years I've watched the view, since last I went to sea. As master of the compass rolls, Falmouth packet free. Many's the hopeful miner I've taken from these shores. Far from wife or family, I've taken them on board to earn their living honestly, digging beneath the ground. And many's the broken miner I brought back to Falmouth town. I've seen the storms round Hatteras, dodged ice round cold Cape Horn, as clippers on the Hughley, so Hobart in the pond. I've sailed my ships all o'er the world, seen sights I'll never forget, but Carrick Road at sundown is to me much finer yet.
Tony Truscott singing and playing guitar, and Hilary Coleman on clarinet with Tony's song Old Timer. A credu maiek, casolar ish ulju an aal as an Ymryson. A shingen, as vissain chouds ve rare na courigen, de rauw ish lesh ulju a maias as glenage as credu, tregit eg G. Jonathan, Dorothy, as van vogel schien de maag mor kiaull na melenek, as go ledden de graai as de wijs. Jonathan veen, a shuish ulju McCARTIN go firniach. Bewaliam shuish freelons den aigne truchtmaach en treaglach shoh. Ta vissem de velle kage, de velle strai, maar rensju strai a lucy also, de vodach a lucy irrenjach ve bio se tail regiet. Ach, gene over as doe. Shen anam bach ten avrach ulju en trai a shoh ten ver strimshi je ulju. Na jinshu ach smunien mechion shen, bien bog ege tre bieshen, yes, na strais en arn smedde je, de vod an arn share jen spiridege, ve de brech bio. Signed you goil chimmer jane, yes, gen a jin shen cum rail in lauen, vai straie. The opposition, however, was very quick to point out that he couldn't be allowed to go on scaring the wits out of our visitors the way he had in the churchyard. Old men like Fairy, they said, were better taken into care, for their own sakes. The trouble was that Fairy had lived too long. There was a time when the whole family of the Cregines was woven so closely into the warp of our lives that without them it would seem that the very fabric of it must split and fall apart. But that time was too long ago. Each season leaves behind fewer to remember. But I remember. I remember when I was a child, and the two cottages stood together on the outskirts of the village. I lived in one of them with my mam and dad, and in the other lived all the Cregines. We used to wonder how they managed in there, 6 strapping brothers and the old parents, and Fairy. He was christened Matthew when he was carried to the font at St. Peter's. Dylan Carlos on fiddle from County Roscommon, Kin Sweeney on flute from County Cavan, and they come together to play in Carrick-on Shannon in County Leitrim, which is where guitarist John McCARTIN is from.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Stasiwn yn asiwn to Radio Vanning, as she Claare na Gael and Claare shoh. Mish Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Haven't heard tell of our Bobby Bob.
Te caid you clash na Claare shoh rees fris schacht en lucht jiggle skeelje maag en geer shoh, jorish brewe krammen eragert erinnerdige Radio Vanning, as rai enema Claare on Shen. Ten Claare getten nasty more podcast, yes, erinnerdige Radio Vanning, na through kierder en podcast elia, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. St. Peter's in itself was surprising enough, since the Gregines were really chapel, and all the other brothers had been given solid Old Testament names: Jonah, Joshua, Benjamin, Isaiah, Isaac, and Ezekiel. But as I never heard the youngest Gregine called anything else but Fairy, I don't suppose it made any difference. He was always small and pale and delicate. Later, as he grew, folks would tap on their foreheads when he passed and say, "Ah, well, after all, he's a little seventh child." And in those days it was meant kindly enough. Living next door to the Gregines was not without its risks even then. I remember particularly the Christmas when our front room chimney seized. Like a crow or a rook had built up there in the long months of disuse, but whatever, Mam just couldn't get the fire to draw, no matter how she poked and raked. And she was that mad, for with Christmas so close, she'd been cleaning and polishing our little house until it shone like a palace from top to bottom. Chaoidh Lori, dot me fagin edin a dunne sheshe, chit de vein a story as cribbe, mor de bech an Gina dansen, schergiger vjoes eggeges a chree. Gin tort, henken greim lauwe wen hesje de Venus jenne, derre van a junte negge Gian ben. Gerenny Johnserach van Fien, Jorish va fissem de renny gin aure surrents, ach, ich les soelien va smoe kleine na va drieuw. Tre renny square vai lord, renny limme na jade was, bunnes repe lau macha shenek, Chaoidh Lori, de rauw G corristjachs a lau son nach tredelood a straie vjoos seeltach shenegge, maar te fijn coolina. De bege erskin shen de vod in coronanamegge de breches nuren eilach jinin shen. Oh, hush, and zenema ye vai, naber lied na ridden, Jonathan, ma wunje sheshe. Na niu croidje mish lesh alles atchim. Now this is a question and answer between an old man and his daughter. De wetsir hen thien urthai verch. An old man questioned his daughter, performed by Welsh band CILMERI.
Sianna Fliva Drubeth nach Nigan Baby, no bleep to Sianna Fliva Drubeth nach Nigan Baby. A wickedy vanity will of ruin a harma poem poetran, and bin the quelly quinobli, a heather hand in tree, and a mitter quelly quinobli, a heather hand in tree, the ticket the really kayo queen a choro, on top of where you queenie me, a cleaner ever quedo, on top of where you queenie me, a cleaner ever quedo.
And on the album, the title of that song by CILMERI is shown as Ymryson, but I think it should be Ymryson, which would be a striving, a contention, a competing, to explain the toing and froing in the question and answer between father and daughter. Ach, smunny my bhín, ta misher bei smunnion fine le liawr aglach shoh. The bee, fuddy, leather Fe mem chimma jane liad shen. As fuddy the jen pecher beelia gurachin. As lesh whish and or heathen son corrie, gobble shen dow. Oh, ma wunya shesha, the jaru yinnens sperelu vailida smunnion, de bech acht elia on. Ach, ta ma fager, na wel gier nina moer jane fogland kayed, ach ma dobberen as krie brish jay dunje, vis vigraiach as siegnet de trom. O ye, lig den a renegen bachte ben gul morfenish jay na teer horrens. As carabay na velle an yinnewe ger, as ersen te moerein trimsje jit. Vashingen na Dania ulju shilja jernish, grauw achter bij de jado nayak, as renshin Kenya de foslich. Renish Kenya nis, vagen der awa korl smilishek, en oilnjaard. The Christmas cake was ready on the sideboard, its rich mysteries hidden under a layer of crisp white frosting, and the paper chains hung in the centre of the ceiling. That big paper bell was the joy of my heart. I liked to watch it when it was opened from a flat half shape of a bell into its full segmented glory, quartered in red and blue and green and yellow. No one else in my class at school had such a beautiful Canterbury bell hanging up in their front room. And the holly leaves were fresh and dark and glossy above the pictures and the oak-framed mirror and behind the marble clock. It was no wonder my mam was upset. Well, mam would go and talk about the bother of it, and getting the sweep and that over the fence to Mrs. Cregeen. She should have known better, but I suppose the words were out before she thought, and of course nothing would do but Mrs. Cregeen's elders should fix it. Don't you go purring yourself to that, she said, meaning the sweep. Now, from the first album by Clash VOOAR, Rumours of Unease, this is unusually a song in English. It's called Long Grass. VOOAR and the song Long Grass. Our John'll have that old chimney sweet as a breath in no time at all. But has he the rods and brush and such? Asked Mam, anxious. What did he want with new-fangled things the like of them? Mrs. Cregeen laughed scornfully. She was a big woman, like her 6 elder sons, and Mam must have wondered once again how she'd produced anything so waxen and fragile as fairy. Law bless ye, she went on, he'll be after putting a hen down like he allus does. But my Mam wasn't having any of that. Mam had been a teacher at the infants before she married Dad, and visions of poor Tom and Mrs. Be done by as you did must have swum up before her eyes. No hen was going to be thrust down into the darkness of her chimney. Well, it always works for us, said Mrs. Cregeen, pouting her large bosom and folding her hands over her ample stomach. And it don't do the owl hen a drop of harm, save for a bit of suit. But our John'll think of summat, you leave it to him. Ren a dunne shesje kiauall a ghairgliún leori. As leis na raiach an ege courage McGearta mooi, ren e follach an edin ege ons villachan na goon. Ren van Helsing courige dun, as rensjen snauw maag as een chamber, vergeel en degri graiach na lummerken, merish na G. Roos me jach at de lai rennen allu rege en shaman nai chit derby en to de falle, as renny shiggerige Mina Harker, de waddig is goil fee en she. Huggie eber korlige hien de grailsjen, as de bachtel graie den je shesje, huggie eber gien de wei boeiach. Striw dunnelmer wei as tammy smunnion as tammy krel na rawe gin coolina. We van Helsing chor urlu clag, we dachel nanjou de eirel, me jach eiden bi de wei on. Treva dan ul de lai, ren Quincy, Godalming as mish, rege de jinnach shin wen in sai douche, rein en nie ederein, as freelare sausjes wens wach siechnit. Breton group Tud playing for an Hanter-dro, a dance where you dance along for the first 1, 2, 3, then take a resting step back. If you did the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that would be a dro, but as it's a 1, 2, 3, back, 1, 2, 3, back, it's an Hanter-dro, a half dro. Stasiwn yn asiwn sy'n the jaro radio fanning. As ta siw geisdiach rys Claare na Gael, mer yn pyn Robert gyda'n carswell, Robert y carslach.
Did the ever hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
Tan chyd ara Quincy. Mar so byn y ffyr eliad yn sŵl gys na'n liabi chalias fodmwyd. Ta godol na'n engol dy lai hana, y fe egysyn tan nara. Nish tan overem jint nis gys ma liabi. Lior le Jonathan Harker, yn tras gysyn cherw le jar a fawr fagus de Manley. Fam I smunion y darach cion y le von J. Emmas fy yiri de chadle, on sort enjach de chredju niaw eistjach, de jinnen douste de berg shen de redden maag der au kuschen der rei cochlaech, as de jinnach cochlaer bi nish, corlesh stage share. Rosh merenshin skara, Rensjen lort me on de wegen nagemaan, a gedodschen chitte reiges erbij. Grauw vissijn ach de rauw ongistje de oer maarn, as de rauw vissegen gaunt de lummerken, wol wee on. Maar wisse rai de lai follich, voet die molle shinrish blinten, as edde en dergrij. Ro egiet en smunjen, gebjoost af smunjen eernish. And late in the afternoon, just as the early winter dark was gathering, Herd Jonah arrived at our back door. He had a long ladder balanced on one shoulder, and a heavy ball on a chain hanging from one mighty fist. With his grizzled fair hair standing up against the pale sky, he looked in the half-light like some braw and ancient thane about to do battle with the hordes of the Northlands. "Where's this troubly old Chimley then, missus?" he asked my mam. If only he'd come at dinner time when the sun was shining for a piece, all might have been well. But at this hour the frost was already rime the edges of the slates. My dad pointed this out and suggested waiting for next day, but Jonah wouldn't hear of it. And maybe he had a point for all. Next day would be Christmas Eve, and there'd be fine goings-on then up in Douglas Town. Jonah braced his ladder against the side of our house and sprang to it as to a charger. But he only charged 2 giant steps up that roof, and then he was slithering down again. Well, let's join FIONA MACKENZIE and the band Anam again for a song written by Norman Nicholson from Antelian Skianach, the Isle of Skye. Scorn gun jiri mi chai, scarce will I ever climb or rise.
Skaum gun jirich michai, jaun si fri ane vani. Skaum gun jirich michai, hamo gunne kjøver merekich, chachich mi ton chile. Skaum gun jirich michai, jaun si fri ane vani. Skaum gun jirich michai, hitche chrochi erne tanyan, schapeshem lauma chefuri. Skaum gun jirich michai, jaun si fri ane vani. Skaum gun jirich chin faren been a fair for all. Skanken dirich mich ein, jan sie fria, wann ich skanken dirich mich ein.
Fiona Mackenzie, and a song by Norman Nicholson, born in Scorrybreck in the Isle of Skye in 1778. His lament there is that he won't be ever climbing up to where the deer are again, because a ban had been put on hunting them, so he wasn't going to be up hunting the deer anymore. We huddled fearful in the garden below. By some of the good fortune that always seems to favour the Cregines, his feet came to rest in the gutter spout, and he managed to lie straddled across the slates, scrabbling for a hold, while the iron ball, released from his frantic fingers, teetered for a moment on the edge of the gutter, and then crashed down, straight through Dad's cold frame underneath the kitchen window. Jonah hung on and hollered for the rest of the Cregines. They came tumbling out of their back door and over into our garden, every one of them roaring advice. Joshua, Benjamin, Isaiah, Isaac and Ezekiel, and their mam and dad. And Fairy bringing up the rear. Fairy, of course, was swinging on his mother's skirts as usual, for all he was a lad of 10 or more. We retreated to the back fence, out of the way. Dad looked sadly at the last of his Brussels sprouts, and at the few frost-bitten Michaelmas daisies he'd been nursing through to Christmas. Ta fissem saw. Ma va riw benon je ledden erdvias, tan fershen ma wach wien as a gergintje. Ta graia murray, tau zen fillion a smoos on a chimma millish and leave on rire, chimma hug a dewey empeen den erdvrout, Jean drolenach. De shigger gaan nodde ve de gin G ligged en sail ve na spachte, jorish call lidach retour. Shore me tresh thou. Tashin ulju gol lesh a tror eg a skernish, a she credju tan unnagerain. Puis the G, ta mina na cadla, as na cadla gin dremel. Ta alem, rosh a chumma fuddy ve eg a dremel, lesh cunyan cho atchimach mor undin thou. Chanelier ve cho cune, ons mochilia, Ymryson laigrenia. Esh, rish tamult, henks in edinec, fe, va gurish an yarach, lug reden an mi baard. Va mi smullion eg a tred, der awe bwigus a laigrenia jurg in edinec. Ach, ons acht en jacht nish, ta mi but smullion de vel bun stuna jay. Now this is the well-known Welsh hymn from 1892, Calon Lan, music by Landor John Hughes, and the music of Gwrosydd, the bardic name of Daniel James. The words by Gwrosydd, the bardic name of Daniel James. He worked in the South Walian ironworks. The solo voice you'll hear here is BRYN TERFEL.
Calon
BRYN TERFEL with Cor Meibion Risca and Chorus Meibion y Mynydd Ddu, accompanied by the orchestra of the Welsh National Opera conducted by Gareth Jones. That was the hymn Calon Lan. Chanel mi hun Sabinach, gred fel mi ski, ged fel mi ski, ski gus y bes. Na iau sain daw cor eber cadla, nod fel len y berach dy smonion as chanel fe mahon. Dereth. Even then the Crejeans believed that the shortest distance between 2 points was a straight line. My mam called out for them to leave the chimney be. She'd get the sweep in the morning. But they didn't seem to hear. And we'll finish Dorothy Manley's first homely tale next time. Shoh by Claare and Gael. Between 7 and 9 this evening, stay tuned for Chris Pearson, bringing you 2 hours of the best chill-out music for your Sunday evening. At 9 o'clock, Judith Lay will be here with Sundown. We bring Claare and Gael to a close with music from Irish band Moving Hearts, their 1985 tribute to Padder O'Connell. Ach, ma va mi gré Sinead. And so until the next time, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Oh, Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve I'm a chrieri, was orserlie, as me year and shed you will you.